Globalization. Globalization. You must have heard this term, globalization. So if I ask you, what is your understanding of globalization? How would you respond to that? What is globalization? What are some of the benefits of globalization? What are some of the disadvantages of globalization? How the world is reacting to globalization? Anything on that, whatever comes to your mind in terms of your own observation, reading, globalization. What do you have to say? Please go ahead.
Um, okay, so I think globalization is it's like a process where businesses and organizations in general they try to branch out and they create an international influence. So they work on an international scale as opposed to working only locally, and they can grow, and it helps them to grow and expand as a business, and so they become more of a international business as opposed to uh, how it's maybe started.
Very good start, Saad. So let's reflect on some of the pointers Saad is making. So he's saying not just produce locally, but why don't we go in a foreign market, make it an international trade, expand our business, earn money from international markets, foreign remittances, get some US dollars from international markets. They will come in our market. We will get exposure. We will get expansion in the business. What will happen to consumer in the international market? They will have different options for the product. When there will be more competition, I gave you example of having multiple chocolates in the shop when you go to buy chocolate biscuit or whatever you different. So what that do for you as a consumer? There is a competition between those international traded products, those chocolates. So because there is competition, everyone wants to keep their price within the budget of the target market, so the price will not go very high. This is a benefit of globalization because it increases competition, it increases more choice. If there were no globalization, then in your country you would only get the products and services which are manufactured locally. You won't have things from other places. Our interaction, this is a product of globalization. I don't know if it is good or bad so far, but this is the product of globalization. Competition will increase, more choice will come, government policies will get influence, people will know what is happening in the other part of the world. But then again, we recently saw a negative of globalization. For example, COVID-19, where it comes from? Travel one place to another, too much traveling, the world is happening in the world, too much products are going from one place to another. So as they are doing international trade, they are also trading COVID-19 across the globe. So there's some thoughts on you. I hope you got a chance to think about globalization. So please go ahead and contribute in the discussion. Say whatever you have to say about globalization. Please go ahead.
It also means
You
that
mentioned some disadvantages already. I also think a big disadvantage of globalization is that of course, there are winners, but there are also losers. So not everyone can win on the world, and I think as the globalization increases and the trade increases, the losers will lose more and the winners will gain more. So this is a quite unfair aspect of globalization.
Good one.
Sorry, maybe you mentioned this already, but globalization also can mean like the exchange of functions or experiences. Like, for example, some American company, they now really interesting in Indian IT companies, and they like function together now. There is a lot of examples. Yes.
also
So
it
you
means that
already
more
mentioned,
companies will be dependent on each other in
Please,
terms.
guys, speak louder. When you speak louder and close to the mic, see where the mic is there, and speak louder so we can hear you. I'm having difficulty in listening to you.
Globalization also means that markets are more dependent on each others and between the countries. And if you have a disturbance in the supply chain, you will see the effects all over the globe. For example, during the corona pandemic, the Chinese tech hub Shenzhen was locked down, and you had an increase in electronic market prices a few weeks later.
So you already mentioned the competition among different cultures and countries. But on the other hand, we're becoming more open-minded towards different cultures and nationalities. So I think that's quite a positive aspect of globalization as well.
Maybe globalization is also a chance for less developed countries to, because they now have more countries where they can sell, where maybe people are richer that can actually afford buying the products, as opposed to people living in that specific country.
But that could also mean we take the resources of poorer or less developed countries, and then they can also be losers in that aspect. If they open their market and they have no developed economy, we'll be the ones having more bargaining power.
But I would say globalization improves people's life in terms of their economic status, due to the reason that many global companies establish their subsidiaries in other countries. So yeah, thousands of jobs and new occupations are created. So under these conditions, citizens who live in those progressing countries are able to do a well job provided by those internationalization enterprise.
Yes, I think in total you will have more wealth totally over the world, but there will be losers to this process as well. And in that aspect, we also need to watch out for, I think it's called social justice when we speak of globalization, because there are losers.
Yes.
And just because in total wealth increases, in the statistics we see everything's going up, doesn't mean that it's going up evenly distributed during the whole society all over the globe.
Yes, very, very good. Want to make a couple of pointers. Please pay attention to this discussion where our friends are talking about some of the very big negatives of globalization, where friends are talking about like the rich companies, influential companies, they will become even more, and it will be very hard for a small business to come in. So think about that example, the different chocolates where you are in the shop and you want to buy one of them. So there are already 25 different brands, international established brands, which make chocolates across the world, and they are not very expensive chocolates. We are talking about like Kit Kat, Cadbury, Bounty, these type of basic Mars, these type of brands. Yeah, so they are already. So if there is a new entry, if there is someone else who wants to now say, all right, let me make my chocolate and sell it, how they are going to go, how they are going to go in the international trade? There is already so much competition, there is manipulation going on by some international trades who have good hold on business. They might want to take advantage of the situations there. And our friend mentioned things are not evenly distributed. He used the term evenly distributed, but that is the case in life. Look around yourself wherever you are things evenly distributed? No. In your community, are things evenly distributed? No. Some people are smarter than the others, some people are more good looking than the others, some people are more smart, some people are more rich, some people are more educated, some people are more experienced, and so on. That is the same thing in the context of globalization, specifically when we are talking about international trade. So think about these things, and in that, think about some of the things like monopoly. some of the businesses would have monopoly on the system, and they won't let anyone else have that type of business. So for example, in some of the countries, electricity, for example, it is a monopoly. It is not that there are a couple of businesses who can generate and sell electricity. They have to do it from the government supervision or government's approval and that type of thing. So it is not a single person or a single company or a standalone company can distribute electricity in a country. That is not how it is. So it is monopoly. So if you want to bring the price down, either government will have to support that industry in terms of giving it relief or making a standard pricing, or they will have to have different type of competition. Same goes for telephone charge, the bills we get, the cellular provider companies, the connection providing companies. If there is only one company in the country who gives you internet connection or gives you mobile phone connection, then the price of that will be very high in that country, generally speaking. But as more and more companies come, because of maybe globalization, other companies from other countries are going to come and invest in the infrastructure and so on. The pricing will go down and so on and so forth. So think about that. Another friend mentioned supply chain management. That is very interesting in this type of discussion. What is supply chain? You need to think about that in your own time. But anyways, coming back to the discussion, please go ahead and talk about globalization, whatever you have to say.
I would have another thing to add, which is sustainability. It's sort of contradictory to have a globalization process and at the same time want sustainability, because the supply chain, all of the logistics is handled, for example, by ship transfer and transport, which emits the most CO2 at all. And to this aspect, it's another downturn. We can't be sustainable if we keep up the globalization as we have it now.
I think you can go on.
Okay, I also wanted to mention the aspect of time, because I think that globalization is also making all the processes go faster. And of course, this is also due to the technological advancements, but I think it goes hand in hand, since globalization is providing more connections with other companies and countries, and that results in faster and more ideas, and they get generated more. And this also, I think it can be a good but also a bad thing, because for example, product life cycle is getting shorter and shorter, and new things get on the market faster and faster. And of course, that provides the consumers with more choices, but also I think in the long run, it's not sustainable and it might be a problem in the future.
Thanks very much, Nadine, for bringing in these terminologies. Please pay attention to these terminologies because I did not use them. For example, product life cycle. So yes, the product or service, whatever you are going to trade in the international market, where is it in the product life cycle? Is it in the early stage? It has matured, or it is going into decline? Where it is in that phase, you would want to think about it. This is one of the concepts you would look in, for example, a standard marketing course. But just run a Google search on this and spend like 5 minutes on this. What is product life cycle and how it can be linked with international trade? That is one. Second is sustainability. Yeah, that is becoming, I said it earlier also in the earlier part of our discussion. I want to repeat it. Sustainability is becoming more and more important across the world, especially environmental sustainability. Companies across the world are very keen in ensuring that whatever product or service we are bringing in, especially as in international trade, it is not harming environment in any sense. it has the properties to decompose very easily, and so on. So many things they are making. I read a very interesting article where they were talking about these water bottles in which we get uh, mineral water or drinking water and so on. You know, those bottles which we carry and so on. I was reading, and you can run a Google search on this. There are some YouTube clips also. You can run your search in that. I don't think I posted that on my website. So they have made water bottles that as long as water is inside the bottle is fine. But once you take out the bottle, after some time, the bottle starts decomposing. Yeah, if someone can run a quick search on that, it would be nice to share in the class also. Yes, please go ahead. Anyways, continue with what you have on globalization, please.
I think another consequence of globalization is that we really depend on each other. So the countries depend on each other. And I think it became quite obvious during the current situation with COVID-19, because like my sister works in a pharmacy shop and they had not enough medicine or important drugs for the people, because like the most important substances for the medicine is produced in China, and therefore there was not enough medicine anymore for some weeks. So I think this is also a consequence of globalization, that we depend with the resources on each other and in different countries.
Yeah, I will
Yes,
also add this.
just let me say this, because I think this is important. Because so this is L. I don't know how to pronounce it. Please pronounce it the way you want it. So LG or L guy in water bottle. So a new biodegradable bottle design is made from a jelly-like material called agar. And if you don't want to throw the bottle away, you can eat it. Yeah, the bottle is made from agar, a powder made from algae. When it is mixed with water, it turns into a jelly-like material that can be molded into shapes like a bottle. So what I'm trying to say, once the water is out of the bottle, it starts decomposing. That is very interesting. So linking it with what Nadine said about sustainability, yeah, environment, and those type of things, that can be very interesting. Yes, please go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I would like to add this to the advantage of globalization. Uh, Globalization give companies advantage to reduce their tax expensive. Like companies move their headquarters to country with tax haven, so which help them to reduce their tax expenses. And also the disadvantage is the the uh, the country with good or with big markets like Germany or United States or France are not benefiting from these taxes. So these taxes are because these taxes are to be paid by the headquarters and where the headquarters is located. So then when they sell this product to in these countries, they generate a lot of money, and then they pay lower taxes in tax haven countries. So it has advantage and also disadvantage. Yeah.
Very good. Thanks for that. Very interesting discussion. So look at this. For example, you need to read about this in your own time. I don't want to spend in my session, but this is just for you to look at. The Panama Papers were a massive leak of financial files from the database of the fourth biggest offshore law firm in the world. The documents were leaked anonymously to German newspaper. Of course, I cannot pronounce this, so you would have to read it. Which released them on the April 2016. So offshore companies. Yeah, this is what our friend is talking about. These are, read into this. You will find so many big companies who are trying to do things so they don't have to pay a lot of taxes and so on and so forth. So I just took time to show you these two stories. But going forward, you need to do it in just Google search, run a Google search if I ask you to, and see what comes up, and try to increase your awareness in that. Yes, please go ahead.
I wanted to say something about the building on the connectedness that we have through globalization. I think it was Dalai Lama who once said that the world is becoming more interconnected more than ever, and that the world is getting smaller, but also our perceptions are not changing in the same pace, and we are still speaking of us and them and fostering that division, which is very interesting to me. Maybe like it's not an economic point of view, but it's very psychological, and yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, good contribution in the discussion. So we were missing the spirituality part in the discussion, and our friend brought in some spirituality and very profound words. Of course, whatever she said is absolutely correct and very relevant with international trade, and even in our own lifestyles. You can think about that. Yes, I see a lot of hand raised. Please go ahead quickly and say what you have to say.
Also, if you conduct international business, you face the conflicting expectations from the variety of stakeholders from all over the world. So that requires, I would say, a global mindset and also cultural intelligence. So you can solve this complexity and find appropriate solutions.
Yeah, also if setting up a company in another culture and country, you open new jobs for the locals there. And it's also very important that they have a job. It's also a great opportunity for the company as well and the culture there.
Or it's cheap labor.
Yeah, so you...
So to comment on that, what the two girls just said with the people's mindset, if you want to be successful as an international company, I think, as they said, it's really crucial what people we have in our company. So they have to be like, they have to know other cultures or the cultures we want to get in. And also, like, there are more skills getting more and more important, because another aspect we haven't mentioned so far is the big data which is created due to the whole globalization thing. And so, yeah, it is really hard to deal with that and to find the right ways and processes to deal with that, I think.
Oh, great point, Sabrina. Thanks for that. So our friend is talking about big data. You can include artificial intelligence, 5G. You can include Internet of Things. All of these things are massively impacting the rising role of technologies, robotics. All these things are massively changing the way we are talking about globalization. But what I really liked in what Sabrina said is that mindset. That is, I think, that is one thing which we really need to think, that what is our mindset in terms of because we are talking about international trade, so we will focus on that. But generally in life, mindset is the thing. It is your mindset which is to give you interesting ideas. It is the mindset which is going to help you execute them. It is the mindset when you react, all of that. So she sums it up in that it's a small word, mindset, but that is what it is all about. Yes, guys, please go ahead.
All right, so I didn't know if it was just mentioned, but globalization also increases cultural awareness, I guess. So, because a globalized society boosts the rate at which people are exposed to the culture, attitudes, and values of people in other countries. So, I would say, yeah.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, sure.
I also have I don't know if it's called if I could call it a fear, but globalization also makes culture go away, and it will transform to one global culture somehow, because otherwise people won't be having won't be able to communicate efficiently. So that's another aspect of this cultural thing I just want to add.
I mean, it strengthens ties between nations, so that's true.
So because we all speak one language in globalization, that's where culture will have to stand back at some point.
Yep.
Yes, I see some hands are raised, some mics are on. If you are speaking, speak. If you are not speaking, please lower your hand. Go
Maybe
ahead.
another thing about the culture, but in a different aspect. I also think that the corporate culture or the company culture is getting more and more important because, especially in globalization, because if we know as a company how our culture is, and every single employee can like identify itself with the company and with their strategy and how international they will be, it is a lot easier to have everybody in the same boat and go the same way. Yeah, just
Very
on the
good.
side
Very
note.
I actually have a question. So,
Please go ahead.
do you believe that globalization has reached its maximum at some point, so that it will go not further because, I don't know, raw materials have been used up and the industry is exhausted? Or do you think it continues to go on and on and on?
Okay, very interesting. Guys, let's try to answer this. So Pauline is raising a question that wherever globalization has reached, is its potential, because there are already so many materials, whatever it is. If you are talking about shirt, we have made shirt from all the materials possible. What else we can do with this? So in terms of globalization, please try to answer this question. Please go ahead.
I think globalization is very dynamic to that point, and if one country is relevant one day and it has exceeded its globalization potential, it might be the loser country the next day.
Very, very strong statement coming from our statement, but we can't argue him, because we have seen this happening, because the world is so much interconnected now that not you can't survive if you don't go into that. But let's stick with the question which our friend Pauline is posing. So she's saying that is globalization has reached its limit or not? So personally speaking, I can give you my point of view, but don't get influenced from that. You have your own point of view, whatever you want to say. So I would, maybe if I have to answer, I would say that no, I would say that maybe globalization has not even started in the real sense of the word, although there is so much globalization. But to me, it has not even started, because think about it. Sabrina just mentioned big data. Yeah, so that is just starting out. So big data is going to change so many things. It is already changing. The future is going to be all about data. If you can link with that, 5G is going to make massive changes. So new advancement, new innovation, new things are going to come all the time. We spoke about sustainability, environment, sustainability. I showed you a water bottle which is going to decompose once the water is out of the bottle. I was talking about the shirt. So what is the future of manufacturing of shirts? Now shirts, the material with which it is made, uh, it can keep you cool, or it can keep you warm around in the approximation of 6 to 8 degrees. So if it is 20 degrees centigrade outside, if you are wearing the proper shirt, it can keep you warmer to around 28 degrees centigrade. MIT is doing some research on this. you should Google search and try to find out this type of information. So if that thing happens, what would happen? What would happen to air conditioning? What would happen to the systems we have installed in our house, which are sometimes they are expensive to heat, to warm inside accommodation once you have that type of clothing? So that is going to change another area in globalization. So then that is going to be demanded more. So think about that. But of course, because there are many disadvantages of globalization also, then you might want to think that how much globalization you want. But then again, you as a government cannot decide. This is the choice of the consumer, which is going to demand a product from international market. So if you go in the market right now and you say, I need XYZ, whatever it is, and it is not available, the seller is not going to bring it because you are only one person. But right now there are 70 people. If all 70 of us go in that shop and ask for a product which is not available in Germany or whichever country you are, that shop is going to bring in that product, no matter how they bring it. If government has restriction, they might smuggle it because the shop wants to sell products. That is the purpose of their business. And consumer wants something, they are going to bring it in. Yeah, so that is one way of thinking about it. But of course, you can think the way you want. Anyways, go back to the globalization discussion and the question Pauline posed. You can say what you have to say. Go ahead.
I think we are still at the very beginning, the first phase of globalization. And the future, I mean, in 20 years, we will be living in a totally different world. And it might look like a sci-fi movie. I mean, the session we're having now, 40 years ago, if you tell someone, he would think this is like science fiction and he won't believe you. But we are having it now. And the pace is way faster now. It's exponential. So in 10 or 20 years, we don't know where we might be. And it might be frightening, but that's we can't control, as you just said.
Yeah, I think it is interesting to have a look at what are now developing countries, because they aren't going to be developing countries forever. They will come up into the tertiary sector, and so I think that might be an interesting development to look at and how the now industry nations interact with them.
Are we so sure they'll manage that on time?
Well, some of them will, I think.
What about those who don't manage it?
Well, I was just saying, like, the ones that do, that would be interesting to look at. I'm not saying all the developing countries are going to become industry countries.
I mean, also on the other hand, maybe it's not the country itself who will develop by itself, but if not, then somebody else will come, and because the space needs to be used, and like it won't just be land and nobody will use it. So at this point, there will something happening in this countries, I guess.
There will be a lot of ethical questions to be solved in the future then.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think it's also very important that you consider the ethical point of view as how the people in the country see it, and if they then are really treated fairly. It's also the question of just for example, the European countries come and decide for them, and they just don't want to live like this. They're happy in their life like it is without globalization.
I have to confront you on
Not every
that.
country takes part in globalization, like North Korea. They don't want to be in this kind of relationship with other countries. So there is high potential with all these globalization.
Yes. Alexandra, you just raised, you said that it's European countries who are sort of exploiting lower developed countries, right?
Yeah, this was just an example with the European countries.
Because if I look at Africa, for example, as the continent, which country is investing the most in Africa at the moment?
Yeah, I think there are two sides. So, but there are also some cases which I read about where for example, from chicken, if chicken is produced in Europe, Europeans just want the nice parts of chicken, and the rest is transported to Africa, and there the local farmers cannot make their prices as low as the rest products from Europe. So the local farmers get unemployed and have problems because the Europeans put their rests, which they don't want to have, just to Africa without thinking what is happening there. So that's what an example what I meant. But of course there are also European, I don't know, governments or organizations which want to help Africa. So you always have to see both sides.
Okay. I think I've actually seen those contents in a documentary as well with the chicken.
I think it's also with clothes sometimes. So
But isn't that
also
sort of
with
also
cars, I think,
economic
right?
freedom?
Sorry, I didn't.
I think
But
also
isn't-
with cars too.
Yeah, that could also be a problem.
Economic freedom, sort of. I mean,
Yeah,
if they want
that's
to buy,
right.
If I may interrupt, there is like a study about this, which is quite complicated, about this exploitation paradox. So you might think there is some exploitation going on, but the alternative is way worse, and that happened with the child labor in Asia. For example, they said we should shut down those manufacturing plants. They are hiring childs or cheap laborers. But the alternatives, when they shut it down, it was terrible. So it was way worse. And you can't give the same wages you give in Europe in underdeveloped country. That does not make sense. So it's quite tricky, and there's no solution for it or realistic solution for it.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah, but-
agree with you that it's very complicated. Get all influences.
I mean,
Very good contribution to the discussion. So a couple of pointers you guys are mentioning. For example, you are saying that in the future, because of globalization, a lot of ethical questions are going to be raised. So maybe start thinking about that. What are those child labor? Our friends spoke about it. Africa, you guys are talking about that, emerging markets. But even if you stay in Europe, even if you want to talk about some developed countries like Germany or these type of countries in Europe, there are many business opportunities in there also. It is not that all the products are made in those countries. A lot of international trade is happening. Products are coming from various other countries, for example, China and Asia and all those type of countries. One point which I really liked, you guys made exceptional points and thanks for that, but one point really stood out to me. I really want you to reflect on this, please. But before that, I see a couple of hands are raised. You guys want to say something, please please go ahead, and otherwise lower your hand.
So about what Ash said about the study, and but this, I mean, this is also a bad excuse, in my opinion, for companies to carry on as it is. It should be the goal to actively change the circumstances for underdeveloped countries, and to come up with action plans for governments to help out undeveloped countries, and not just carry on as it is because we say, well, but they wouldn't be so good well off if we wouldn't produce our clothes there, or
No,
yeah.
you are right, but the solution should be realistic. You can't implement Europe's experience in underdeveloped countries. So you have to be realistic. You can't give the minimum wage of Germany in Bangladesh, for example, because they have different standards. I mean, for wages, you can't give 10 euros per hour.
Yes, but that's not what I'm
This is what
saying. I
they're
mean,
asking for. So they shut it down because they think it's unfair to give lower wages than what they are getting in Europe. So it's just, it should be realistic. It should be changed, but in a realistic scenario, not just implement what the standards are in Europe in some other places. It doesn't work this way.
I think
Yeah,
no,
Timothy.
but that's not what I'm.
maybe we misunderstood the point he was raising. But of course, what you are saying, Ash, is correct. But maybe that was not the exact point he was making. Any other points anyone want to raise or lower your hand?
I wanted to also say about globalization that it's probably, as most of us here said, not has not reached its peak yet, but it's still barely started. But I also think that there's a small like sub-trend going against globalization, which is connected to the sustainability aspect again, because many people have realized that having global supply chains is not good for the environment due to
Oh yeah.
shipping materials around the globe 3, 4, 5 times. And that's why some people are starting to trying to source locally and buy locally themselves again.
Yeah.
Maybe my point also goes in that direction. I mean, we probably all know that some countries go more for a national oriented strategy nowadays. I mean, if you look at the USA, they did raise some tariffs against China, and because they fear that they have a disadvantage when there is a too globalized approach.
I didn't understand that. Can you repeat it?
We also have some trends going against globalization, like some countries raise tariffs again and build up some trade barriers.
But
Yeah, and I also think like the current crisis showed some of the bigger problems of globalization that like local production for like very important products can be also beneficial, and that it's not only good to be dependent on sources from outside.
In my opinion, I think globalization maybe could also change the consumer behavior. If a new culture that you are not familiar with enter in your country, that might be changing the behavior of the country people.
Fair enough, and thanks for your contribution in the discussion for globalization. So when you will click the link for, yes, Benedict, you want to say something? You have raised your hand.
Yeah, it might be a bit provocative, but I want to add to Timothy's point when he said we need real action plans, because this is what I really think as well. Because I think sometimes the Western countries are a bit hypocritical. So that they seem to be innocent, but to be honest, when we look like 50 or 100 years back, we also had child labor and did all the things developing countries do right now to earn their wealth and to develop further and to get the money they need to keep up in the market and the economy. So I think we really need to support them in a better way than we do it right now, and not in a yeah, we help here, but then we do the other thing on the other side. So I think this is a bit hypocritical.
But that also makes these countries dependent on our help, doesn't it? And then they won't have a stand foot on their own.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just about, do you want them to build their wealth with the same issues that we raised, like child labor and unfair working conditions, or do we want to help them to develop in another and better way?
We want both, I think. We don't want them to exploit children, but we also want them to develop, and also we don't want them to be dependent on us. I think it's very hard to actually manage.
Yeah, I think that right now we are going away from globalization and start to discuss capitalism.
Can I raise a point, please?
Yes, please go ahead. And before that, both points of Benedict and our other friend, that is the beauty of dialogue. So both points are valid. On one hand, how should Europe treat the other countries in terms of globalization, in terms of international trade? And Benedict is saying that maybe Europe needs to reflect in within, and that is how Europe is going to even improve if they want to improve. It is understanding that when you make a mistake or something, or even if it is not a mistake, as one of the friends said, it is always about continuous improvement. So it's good to think about those things, but then the other friend has a little bit of a different point of view, because he's thinking for the benefit of the developing countries, how will they improve and so on. So that is the beauty of international trade. Yes, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. I just want to mention the point regarding reliance of developing countries on developed countries. Like, I want to see it like I think, my personal opinion, it's not about reliance, because it's more about FDIs. Even developed countries would like to invest all the opportunities they have in order to globalize. Like, all countries are working towards the same thing, because if we don't have enough and fulfilled globalization, this will result in monopoly in markets. And I don't think any human being in life would like to have some monopolist characteristics of specific markets. So the concept of globalization is more about FDIs for governments. So the globalizing government is as well benefiting more than the country which is relying on the other party.
Thank you for the pointers, everyone. So for globalization, yes, Julieta, please go ahead.
I would just like to add one last point to what Benedict said, because he mentioned that Western countries are hypocritical. So when we think about that, we want products to be at home right away, we want innovation, we want speed. And at the other hand, like everybody said, we want sustainability. But big companies are producing and selling products according to our demands. So I think, and at some point, we can't accuse them that they are going to exploit, for example, third countries, because that's what we basically want. And I think everybody of us lies to ourselves, and we just want to be on the winner side, everybody of us, and don't want to change our lifestyle, our overall thinking or lifestyle.
Very, very profound. It is going back to the mindset point. Yeah. So let us rest it on this, and all of us can have our own opinion on this. So for globalization, please lower your hands if you guys are not going to speak. Otherwise, I will be confused. Yes. So um, for globalization, there are some postings, as you are seeing on the website right now. I'm sharing the screen with you. So explore this website. This is a nice, fun website. I won't tell you the details. You can just look into it. It is good to have an introduction to what is trade, a brief history of that. This is an interesting video. You should watch it in your own time. As you are watching this clip, pay particular attention to protection, trade barriers, tariffs, and globalization. Protection, what is protection? Protection is just like someone is trying to protect someone. In this case, government sometimes protect some industries, some business sectors, some products, some services, so the people who have started that business, they can grow, and so on. So these type of things, you, even if you think that we have not discussed a term in our discussion, nothing to really worry about. You can always run a Google search and see what it is about. What is international trade? Appreciate topics like absolute advantage, relevant, comparative advantage, relative advantage, those type of terminologies. I think you should look them up in your own time. You can look up on YouTube or read about it and get an understanding of what it is. Do you know what is World Trade Organization? This is an interactive link. Click on it and try to read what it is about. Expose yourself to various documents posted on this website and read about any topic that interests you. So I'm not going to tell you read this and read that. You just go on the website, go in that section and see what interests you. And if it is the case that nothing interests you over there, nothing to worry about that also. Just read what you can. These bodies, you need to, international bodies, you need to familiarize yourself with them in your own time. IMF, for example, we are aware of the company, but you want to read a little bit more, maybe go on their website, what type of activities they do. You guys were talking about Africa. You guys were very passionate when our friend mentioned some controversial remarks in the last part of the discussion about your European Union, European countries. So how they are relating with the developing countries, emerging economies in Caribbean and in Africa, even in Asia. You can look it up and try to develop your own opinion, whatever you think is fine for me. Other bodies like World Bank, European Union, and then you want to go outside of European Union because it is international trade, so you want to know what is happening internationally. For example, Asia Pacific Economic Corporation. There are so many. We might discuss a little bit of them in regional integration, but that is something which you need to read in your own time. Some slides are there. You can look them up. Globalization now, when should you go in the international market? Yeah, so there, of course, there should be some checklist. Like if you have reached at a certain level, only then you should go and try to compete internationally. Because hey, if you cannot even compete in your local market, how you are going to? If you can't win a race in your department, in your college, in your university, how you are going to win the race in the town and in the full country and in the full continent and in the world. Yeah, so that is the same sentiment. So you want to read them, scan them in your own time, these postings. Don't get overwhelmed that there are so many things. Majority of the things are just for your exposure. If there is something really important, uh, well, everything is important, but if something which I really want to discuss, I will talk about it in our session. For globalization, as you must have realized, even in this small discussion, especially in the last part, you must be able to pick up that globalization is, there is some contention in this topic. It's not black and white. Some people would say globalization is good. Some people are going to say globalization is not good. Yeah, and there are people who have written articles on that. There are universities, there are scholars who are pro and against globalization. Both have their own point of views. My point is not to take one side. My point was just to sensitize you on that, which I think from the discussion you must be able to pick up pointers. But here are two clips. This one is interesting. Globalization is not declining. One of our friends also raised a question which was linked with this. These are small talks, TED talks. You should look into it and so on. At the end, there is a chapter posted for globalization. You might want to scan it. You don't want to maybe read it by line, but you want to just scan it, get an overall understanding. What you, for international trade, what you want to know is that, what is globalization about? What are some of the positives of globalization? What are some of the negatives? In which countries globalization is helping? For example, the countries which are affluent, which are rich, where people can afford to buy the products which are coming as a result of international trade in the context of globalization, those countries are taking advantage. But on the other hand, countries which cannot afford, where purchasing power parity is very low, those countries are people cannot afford. Even if the product is there, people won't be able to afford it, and eventually the product is going to die down from the country. So those type of a general holistic view you want to gain for globalization. So another thing, important thing, is drivers of globalization. What really drives? This is not very visible on the screen right now, but when you will open it in your own time, you will be able to look it up. There are some market drivers, there are some cost drivers, there are some technology related drivers. We kind of touch them, but not in a specific order. Your job is to scan through the driving list, this table 23.1, and try to link it with the brief discussion which we could have, and the other pointers which you might have in your on mind. For example, look at this one: globalization, the good and the bad. Yeah. So even if you think globalization is good, I would encourage you to take the other point of view, listen to other point of view, and just appreciate it, that yes, I think globalization is good, but some people think that it is not, and these are the reasons why they think. Yeah, because anything in life, there is a negative of no matter how good the thing is, there is some negative to that. So globalization, if you ask me, I would say yes, it is very good, it is important, it should be encouraged, all those type of things. But sometimes we have to be, in some areas we have to be just a little bit of cautious, so we don't get impacted or affected by the negatives of globalization in the sense, and we can take full advantage of the positives in that. But again, very easy to say in a discussion. In the real life, when you are in international trade, many of these things are not in your hand, because trade barriers, tariffs, protection, these things are decided by the government in that country, the leadership, which businesses the political government wants to improve in the country, which businesses they don't want to improve. Yeah, so these are some strategic choices which political leaders make, and then the strategies are built around that, and then way down this international trade. But the good thing is that because of globalization, and especially because of the disruption of internet, any product which you can make. One of the friends mentioned an example of baking. She mentioned something that she was baking something or something like that. If she can bake a good cake, the market can be world. All she has to do is just make a website and just market. And of course, it is not very simple, but yes, the avenue is there, which was never there before in the past. Before internet, it was never there. Yeah. So, and you can read on that. Yeah. So these are very interesting times. Of course, challenges are going to happen in the discussions of every topic under international trade. We have seen it in the first topic of globalization, but the idea is that we want to take something positive from that. Just like you guys mentioned, COVID-19, very bad, extremely bad, but there are many opportunities in all walks of life, including international trade, and companies are benefiting. As many companies are going out of business, out of international trade because of COVID-19, many companies are emerging in COVID-19. You just have to run a Google search on that. Okay, so there was one point which I wanted to talk. It came from your discussion, and I think I'm going to conclude on that. I think this is very important point, and thanks for the friend who mentioned this point. Okay, so our friend said that many things which are happening nowadays 20 years ago, they must have seemed like a sci-fi movie. Those things were not imaginable 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago. Whatever things which are happening, we can reflect when we were little kids, the things which were happening at that time, the things which we could not imagine. You can ask yourself, and you will, of course you will agree, that nowadays many of those things are possible. So he gave an example that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the things which we would watch in a sci-fi movie, those things are reality of life. We take them for granted in current time. Yeah, so that is the point I want to talk about. In this context, because we are undergraduate students, and many times we are thinking that which profession we are going to go, what job we are going to do, we are trying to experiment and so on. We are trying to get ready for the work. So in the sense of international trade discussion, and in the sense of pointers coming from globalization and what is in my mind, I really want to encourage you to read and study the future of work, the future of work in your own interest. So for example, in your own interested in the industry you are interested in. So let's say that you are interested in banking. Yeah, banking, you want to be a banker. So you want to understand that what the future of banking will be, how banks will run in the future. No matter what industry you are interested in, you want to study what the future of that industry is going to be, and you want to do it now, and you want to prepare for it. What is happening nowadays that universities across the globe, they are preparing students are graduating, they think they are prepared, but once they go in the real job market, and this is across the world, there are reports on this, people who hire undergraduate students, they say that these people are not ready for work. Why they are not ready? Because they did not prepare for the time when they will be graduating and entering in the workforce. So maybe you are getting prepared for now if you had to go in the job market, but let's say that you will graduate in next 2 years, 3 years. Once you complete your masters, maybe it will be 4 years down the road. So you want to understand how your choice of industry would be in 4 years. So when you are ready to join the workforce, you are ready for it. Now universities are not going to do it for you, unfortunately, across the globe. You have to take responsibility of this, and you need to understand what is the future of work in your industry. With this, thank you very much for participating in the discussion. I think I'm concluding on this thought. Thank you very much.